Humanity's relationship with fire has had profound effects, both positive and negative. It was available naturally through lightning strikes and volcanoes, even before people were able to start fires themselves. It provided early humans with protection from animals and light to ward off the evils associated with darkness. By cooking food, humans were able to expand their diet, and with it, their physical and mental capacities. Whether a rustic campfire, a Roman hearth, or a cozy fireplace, it has always been associated with warmth and comfort. Later, it was used to master metals, first by forging and then casting. Fire presents obvious hazards. People quickly learned to avoid burning themselves, but as they began to live in more densely packed communities, its dangers became increasingly evident. Fire became the epitome of evil. Fires are frequently secondary results of other disasters, particularly earthquakes as shown here, but also tornadoes, hurricanes, and even floods. Human beings have also used fire in intentionally destructive ways. Arson is evident throughout history. The use of fire in war has also been a constant. It was employed in ancient and medieval sieges. Horrific weapons range from the use of Greek fire in the ancient Mediterranean to modern flamethrowers, nuclear weapons, and napalm. People try to find logical explanations for events and trends in the past. However, historians often underestimate the significance of accidents and human error. This is particularly true in the case of great historical fires. As a result, superstition often emerges to explain incomprehensible horrors. One of the best-known early fires is the Great Fire in ancient Rome, which destroyed much of the city. Very evident at that time was the development of myths surrounding devastating fires, including the rumor that the Emperor Nero fiddled while Rome burned, long before the fiddle was invented. In fact, Rome was rebuilt in an even grander fashion, and the world's first fire department was established. Similarly devastating, the Great Fire of London in 1666 also had some positive effects. It actually ended the plague which swept England in 1665. Thanks to Sir Christopher Wren, London too was rebuilt in a grander fashion. The Great Chicago Fire of 1871 was also accompanied by much mythology, in particular the story of Mrs. O'Leary's cow starting the fire by kicking over a lantern. 22 years later, it was proven to be false, but only after much anti-Irish sentiment generated by dishonest journalists. Our memories and records of disasters are often very selective. One example of this is the Peshtigo fire, which destroyed much of 7 counties in Wisconsin and Michigan. This fire was the worst in American history in terms of property damage and loss of life. However, few people know about it because it occurred on the same day as the Great Chicago Fire. Similar biases favoring cities over rural areas are evident throughout history. The Peshtigo Historical Society Museum has a good collection of artifacts and documents. It presents many details of the town's history and everyday life, particularly its lumber and furniture industries. However, its displays concentrate on the fire. Just behind the museum is a cemetery with many of the fire's victims. Here's a mass grave for over 350 unidentifiable victims. In most cases, it could not be determined if they were male or female, or adult or child. The cemetery also contains many family plots and memorials. Many grave markers recount horrific deaths. People jumping into wells and rivers and being boiled to death. Entire families killed by the flames. Some plaques remember families whose remains were never found. A deadly combination of drought and wind patterns created a firestorm. A mural on the wall of a downtown pharmacy remembers the tragedy. One questionable legacy of Peshtigo is that the firestorm was later studied by the U.S. military, and its conditions were mimicked to firebomb Tokyo in March 1945. Fueled by the encroachment of climate change, disastrous wildfires have increased in California, Canada, Siberia, Portugal, Spain, Greece, Australia, Brazil, and throughout Africa. Ironically, the carbon imprint which led to many of humanity's greatest innovations has proved a double-edged sword. Throughout history, fires destroying individual buildings have also been notable. Going back to ancient times, they include the first and second temples in Jerusalem in 586 BC and 70 AD respectively, and the Library of Alexandria, which burned 4 times until it was completely destroyed in 642 AD. By the 19th century, fire hazards increased dramatically with the industrialization of densely populated cities. Thousands of fires and explosions followed worldwide. Among the most deadly were the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire in New York City on the 25th of March, 1911, and multiple garment factory fires in Pakistan in September 2012. Both of these led to significant reforms in fire safety measures. Many famous buildings have burned, including London's Globe Theatre in 1613 and the arson of the Reichstag in Berlin on the 27th of February 1933. Here are some before and after photographs of the Crystal Palace fire in London in November 1936. Then there was Windsor Castle in November 1992, and the September 11th attacks on the World Trade Center in New York City in 2001. The most deadly structural fire in history destroyed the now rebuilt Iglesia de la Compañía de Jesus in Santiago, Chile on the 8th of December, 1863. It cost over 2,500 lives. A more recent building fire, which profoundly affected many around the world, was that at Paris's Notre Dame Cathedral on the 15th of April, 2019. Notre Dame is one of the world's finest examples of Gothic architecture. Its stained glass windows, gargoyles, and flying buttresses are famed for their unique beauty. Viewed around the world on television and social media, one of the most heartbreaking scenes was the fiery collapse of the cathedral's central spire. Here are some photographs before and after the fire. Notre Dame is expected to be completely rebuilt and reopened by the end of 2024.